All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some more UFC DFS picks and lineup advice. This time for UFC Jacksonville, Ilia Topuria, Josh Emmett. We're live here from Jacksonville at the Margaritaville Hotel. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. We just got back from the weigh-ins live because Moose and I are here at the live final. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. And we're joined by Jake the Snake, owner of MMADFS.com. And Jake, I gotta say, you're a little bit of a celebrity down here. Multiple qualifiers came to me and said, "Love you and Jake's work." So we got some living up to do here. What's up?
Oh man, I love to hear it. Yeah, I guess we'll have to be careful about what we say then.
We will be very careful about what we say while giving the rest of you non-qualifiers the best info we can for this slate. What we do here, we break down the main event from a betting and DFS perspective. We'll talk about the newcomers. There are three on this card. Give some background to their debut in the UFC, and we'll play good fighter, bad fighter, good matchup, bad matchup for those fighters who have less than 4 UFC fights under their belt to give some context to their stats. And we'll close it out with a prize picks play, a fight that you have to target in DFS, and our stream parlay of the week. So make sure you stick around to the very end. Jake, let's jump into it. Ilia Topuria, Josh Emmett, main event. Topuria, the biggest favorite on the card, 13 fights on the card. Talk to me about how you think this fight plays out, and more importantly, of course, what the pricing and the outcome, the likely outcome, means for DFS.
Yeah, I mean, step up in competition for Taporia. He hasn't faced a ton of strikers really. He faced Jai Herbert. He got dropped in that fight. That was up at 155. I think that kind of showed one concern with him is his durability. He's faced a lot of grapplers, and he's a dominant grappler, and he's a good striker himself. And his one other concern, probably his cardio. We've only seen him hit the third round one time. It was in his short notice UFC debut against the Law, who's a cardio machine. And Taporia definitely gassed out in that. But I mean, it was, a short notice debut. So who knows what his cardio? I would say his cardio is a mystery, but he almost never needs to use it because he's finishing everybody in the first two rounds. The guy's an absolute beast. He's still only 26 years old, getting better all the time. On the flip side, we have Josh Emmett, 38 years old, pretty one dimensional. Relies mostly on his power. He has a wrestling background, but uses it mostly defensively. Uh, since dropping down to 145, Emmett has an 80% takedown defense. Obviously, that would be useful here if he can keep the fight standing against Taporia, especially after Emmett just got submitted in the second round by Yair Rodriguez. I think both guys have pretty solid scoring potential in DFS. I will say that with Taporia, he's kind of efficient. He's only topped 101 DraftKings points once, despite landing four straight finishes. So he's averaging really solid. What is it, 103? I think he's averaging his four finishes, and he scored well in his decisions. Also, he's just not hitting that real ceiling slate breaking performance that kind of justifies the most expensive fighter on the card, at least in a tournament perspective. In low risk stuff and small field, obviously makes a ton of sense. Huge favorite, massive scoring potential. But if we're talking about hitting the actual optimal, there's definitely ways to get priced out of that. So I think it's kind of interesting. You can't just jam him in basically because you have to look at ways that his price would keep him out if he scores another 101 points in high risk contests. So it at least makes the slate interesting from that perspective, even if Taporia wins. He's definitely not a lock to get in there. And then Emmett, obviously, if he pulls off the upset, it's going to be hard for him to get left out. We have seen him kind of, in his 5 round decision win over Calvin Cater. He didn't put up a huge score. I mean, I'd be shocked if this fight went the distance. So if Emmett wins, it's probably from a knockout. Going to score well. Not very likely that happens, but if it does, then he would obviously be useful. For low risk, I think it's kind of a tricky slate because it's probably going to end in the first round or two. The winner is probably going to score like 100 points, and the loser is probably going to score like 10 or something. So the combined score is not going to be great. We're definitely not expecting. I mean, we always have the disclaimer every time we say this, they score 200 combined points, but we are not expecting this to be a high combined scoring main event. So definitely high volume 5 round decision incoming now.
Exactly. And the pricing difference is pretty big. And for most 5 round fights, we look at it likely going the distance. At least over the past few cards, we've been talking about this. But if you look at the total on this fight, it's whether it's the juices on 1.5 or 2.5, it's expected to end inside the distance by a pretty hefty margin. So not as beneficial to stack in low risk contests. The only reason you would do it is to get that price savings with Josh Emmett. But there's some fighters down there, a couple that are a little mispriced based on the line movements here, but overall, pretty good breakdown there, Jake. So let's talk about these newcomers now. 3 making their UFC debut. We'll start from the first fight of the night to the last fight of the night. And the first one making their UFC debut is Chepe Mariscal against Trevor Peek, which should be a banger. But talk to me about Mariscal briefly. What type of schedule has he had? What type of fighter is he?
Yeah, I mean, the guy has fought more UFC fighters than most UFC fighters in the UFC currently. I mean, it's crazy. If you'll get the list of names, he's fought Sean Soriano, Steve Garcia, Joe Anderson Brito, Yusuf Zalal, Pat Sabatini, Carl Deaton, Bryce Mitchell, and Gregor Gillespie. He only went 2-5 and a no contest in those 8, but it's just crazy how many guys he's faced. Tons of experience. Guy's 30 years old, 13-6. He is making a short notice debut up a weight class, so you got to look at that as a factor for sure. I would say he probably lost, give or take 5 to 10 years off his life in that Joe Anderson Brito KO. I mean, one of the scarier KOs and aftermaths I've seen in a while. I mean, the guy was trying to fight his own cornerman and had to be carried out of the arena because he didn't know where he was after. I mean, it was really, really bad. And I don't think he's looked like the same fighter since then. For sure in the fights immediately after, he didn't. Because you go back and you look, and he had like a really competitive split decision grappling heavy win over Pat Sabatini. Looks great on his record. Then he gets smothered on the mat by Sean Soriano after that, not that long after that knockout. Sean Soriano is the guy that gets submitted every time fights hit the ground. So, I mean, that's an absolutely terrible look. He also had a really bad early stoppage against Steve Garcia where the ref stopped the fight while they were standing. He was fighting back. I don't know what that was. Makes his record look worse than it is. But he's a really exciting fighter. He can grapple. I just kind of wonder about how much tread he has left in the tires. It's like they brought him on too late, But he's a good fighter, and this is going to be an exciting fight. And I think he will have the grappling advantage. So I'm excited to see how this one goes.
Totally fair. And the question I posed to you earlier in the week, Jake, in our DMs was, is it better to be 2-5 against UFC fighters coming into the UFC or 0-0? And I guess we'll find out that answer tomorrow on Saturday. Moving on, we have Joshua Van in fight number 10 against our boy Zhagas Zhumagulov. Joshua Van, talk to me, Jake. What type of fighter is he? What type of schedule has he faced?
Yeah, really young guy, 21-year-old Burmese kickboxer, just 7-1. Really terrible, just absolutely terrible wrestling. Decent striking, just super green. I mean, he should be getting better. He's still so young every time he steps in. Like, even if you look at his short career, it's only been like a year and a half or something since he turned pro. He said he started training like 2 years ago. It's wild. But if you look at his loss, he got absolutely dominated on the mat in the wrestling. It was so bad. And he's improved some since then, but still, that's his weakness is wrestling. And I think the UFC is doing him a disservice by bringing him on so early in his career. I think he could use 5-10 more fights on the regional scene to work on his grappling, to try to catch up to his striking before they bring him on. Just because he's so young. I mean, if he goes 1-3 and gets cut, like, did that really help him out? I mean, we'll see. But yeah, I wonder about his wrestling, man. But just a pure striker, pretty much.
Fair enough. And the final fighter making their UFC debut in Jacksonville, where he was a former Jacksonville Jaguar, got, I would say, mixed reception at the weigh-ins. I was pretty shocked by it. It's Austin Lane fighting Justin Tafa, making his debut, heavyweight. Talk to me about Austin Lane. Again, former NFL player. What's he look like? Who's he fought?
Yeah, I was listening to the ceremonial face-offs. I couldn't tell were those boos or was it Duval chants when he was going up? That was weird.
It was tough. It was tough to tell. There wasn't a roaring applause for him. That's all I'll say.
Interesting. Yeah, the dude's giant. I mean, if you're going to take anything away from face-offs, he is massive. But he's already 35 years old. He's had 15 pro fights. He's 12-3. Never seen the judges before. He's infamously the guy that got knocked out by Greg Hardy in Greg Hardy's pro debut. The first time Greg Hardy ever had a fight, he knocked this guy out in like a minute. Not a great look, but yeah, like you said, he got drafted by the Jaguars in 2010. He played D-line. I think he retired from the NFL in like 2015, went pro in MMA in 2017, faced a bunch of low-level competition, absolutely terrible defensive wrestling, got a bad chin. He's coming off a torn bicep. I don't know how many people are paying attention to that, but he was supposed to fight Junior Tafa on the Perth card, tore his bicep in like December, January. They said it was going to be like a 6-month recovery time, and he said after 3 months he was cleared. So I don't know if that's going to be any lingering effects from that, but something to think about. Now he's facing Justin Tafa Jr.'s brother. So the Tafas have already prepared for this guy twice. Um, yeah, the guy's super tall, super long, and super terrible, but he makes for fun fights. Bad chin, bad wrestling, but he's a giant man that can, I mean, theoretically knock someone out like Tafa.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's move on here. As we close out the show, let's talk about good fighters and bad fighters for fighters have less than 3 fights under the belt. And Jake, I hate to rush you, but we got a DraftKings sponsored dinner here shortly that we got to get to. So we're going to roll through these pretty quickly. And again, from the first fight of the night until the last fight of the night, Cedric Dumas from Jacksonville, he did get quite the applause at the ceremonial weigh-ins. Got mauled in his debut. Is he good or bad? And is this a good or bad matchup against Cody Brundage?
Nah, I'll be super quick. Bad fighter, bad matchup.
Easy enough. All right, Jack Jenkins against Jamal Emmers.
I think he's a pretty decent fighter. Tough matchup.
Definitely a tough matchup against Emmers there. Trevor Peak against Mari Skal.
um, exciting fighter, good matchup.
Great DFS fighter, you would say?
Yeah, great DFS fighter.
Fair enough. All right, moving on down, we have two guys facing each other. They each have one fight under their belt. We have Mateusz Rebecki and Loic Rajabov.
Yeah, I think they're both good, but I think it's a bad matchup for both guys.
Oh, that's tough. All right, moving on down, we have Gabriel Santos. Tough matchup in his debut. Arguably could have won the decision against Lerone Murphy, who both were undefeated at the time. Santos here against David Onama.
Yeah, good fighter, good matchup.
Fair enough, easy enough. Okay, and yeah, that's it. All right, we breezed through that. So we'll close out the show here with a fight that you have to target in DFS. Jake's favorite Prize Picks play of the week for UFC, and our stream parlay of the week. If you're not already and you enjoy the content, make sure you are subscribed here on YouTube. It's free to do. That'll get you notified whenever we go live, upload any UFC DFS videos. Right below the screen here, click subscribe, you'll get notified, and give us a thumbs up. We appreciate the likes. Obviously helps others find the video. Most importantly, it lets us know that you like it and that you want us to keep making these videos. So the more likes we get, the more inclined we are to keep making these videos every single week. So give us a thumbs up. All right, so Jake, Prize Picks play. Remember, you can use promo code Occupy to get a 100% deposit match bonus up to $100. Jake, who's your favorite Prize Picks play this week?
Yeah, I really like Cody Brundage over 93.5 points. I think he's going to clear that easily in a win. He's a negative 175 favorite. And honestly, I think that he should be probably a little bit bigger of a favorite than that.
Yeah, for sure. And just maybe a little preview, a little sneak peek of the Daily Plug later this evening. Now, for a fight that you have to target, I think the easy way out here, Jake, is Peak versus Mari Skal. If you want to go that route, I'll give it to you. But if you have another fight that you think we should target in DFS, throw it out there.
Yeah, I mean, I have that written down as the obvious one, but I wasn't going to give it out because it's like too obvious. I was going to give out the Santos Onama fight. I think is a good one to target. We've seen Santos get rocked before on the regional scene, man. So I
Oh
don't
yeah,
think it's like a given he's going to win. But if he does win, he's probably going to have a ton of grappling, ton of striking. Both guys are exciting. I think whoever wins should score well there.
totally agree. Totally agree. And let's close out with our stream parlay. And I've been a fan of this guy since he's come into the UFC for whatever reason. I truly don't know. But I'm not going to hop off the double Z train right now. So Jake, from my side, the stream parlay, I sent it to you, and you said, "Ha ha ha, goddamn." So my side of the stream parlay is our boy Double Z, Jagas Zhumagulov. You talked about the wrestling advantage. I'm gonna go Double Z by sub here, and it's Triple Z all of a sudden with his nickname starting with Z. So we'll go Triple Z by sub. That's 14-1. So who you compare that with?
Oh man, that is exactly what I said. I also said I'll go with a safer option, so we at least it's realistic that we don't need too crazy things. I'll go Randy Brown inside the distance, man. Turman's coming down a weight class. Turman was already chinny before he came down a weight class. I can't imagine his chin's gonna hold up here, and I think Randy Brown's due for a finish, man. He's had a bunch of decisions. The guy had a bunch of really hard people to finish, and I think now he's getting an easy one. I think this is a great matchup for him to get a finish.
Totally agree. Good stuff there, Jake. If you want more of Jake's work, go to MMADFS.com. He has the sheet every single week where he writes up every fight from a betting and DFS perspective. He has the archive where you can go back and look at historical slates and data, invaluable. And he has his premium content, gets you early bets before the lines move. So make sure you go check him out at MMADFS.com. He also writes our daily plug at OccupyFantasy.com. His favorite plays, lineup construction tips, favorite remaining best bets, and prize picks plays. That'll post Friday evenings after this video post. Make sure you go check that out. Link is in the description. And our Occupy model ranks every fighter, FanDuel, and DraftKings with projected ownership from Jake. And our lineup builder allows you to build up to 300 UFC DFS lineups on FanDuel and DraftKings using our optimal lineup criteria. Everything you need to crush UFC DFS slates. So for Jake at DFS underscore MMA, I'm at Brian Jester FF. Fingers crossed for me at the live final tomorrow. And we appreciate you listening as always, and good luck at UFC Jacksonville.